What is up, my fellow nerds and gangsters? Welcome back to the Speak Nerd channel. We need to talk about Star Wars Episode 9, all one of you who are watching. Um, in general, I had fun watching the movie. I think I'm like most people where it was fun, it was a roller coaster, you were at the edge of your seat most of the time, and it was sweet. And while I was in it, I was in it. But then once I got out of the movie and I started thinking about it, what's up, Charlie? Once I got out of the movie and started thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of problems. but uh, just to start, I'm just totally. This is gonna be non-spoilers, so you're safe. Um, but let me know, all seven of you guys who saw it. So Eclipse Empire says, "I knew you was going to come back for this. I knew it." That Gold Taco, hello there, General Kenobi. What it is, what it is. I saw it last night and cried 13 times. I hope it was all good crying, all good crying. What's up, Lily Pad? Um, Dennis, all right. So Dennis says, I saw it, entertained, but didn't care for it. Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, I thought it was super fun. While I was watching it, it was awesome. But then, as soon as I started thinking about things, you know, the holes and the inconsistencies and the disjointedness of the entire film really became apparent. So I didn't love that. Hello there, Goth Boy, General Kenobi. Um, all right, so Wyatt, you just say me. Did you see the movie? That's what I want to know. Goth Boy, did you see it? So Lilypad says, I have not seen it yet. Wyatt says that I'm the best. Well, thank you. I try to be the coolest. All right, so Hammer says Last Jedi was so bad it ruined Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. I read this review today that said that The Rise of Skywalker makes it actually makes Last Jedi and Force Awakens worse. And there actually were points that I thought weren't bad points. Um, yes, Dennis, this is non-spoiler. Non-spoiler. You know, it's too soon to go into spoilers. Maybe I'll do a spoiler live stream just for that. So let's see here. Goth Boy asked, "What do you think of the battle scenes?" I thought in general the battle scenes were cool. I mean, J.J. Abrams is a master of directing action. He really directs coherent battle scenes, which is actually pretty difficult to do. And when I say that, I mean you don't get lost in what's going on. However, I can't really go into it because it'd be spoiler. But there are a few instances where there were just in film terms, it's called a hat on a hat on a hat, meaning that they're doing something, yet they need to be doing another thing because they really need to be doing another thing, and that seemed to occur a few times where it was just like a little too much things going on. Um, all right. Uh, the name of the movie is called The Rise of Skywalker. What did I say? Did I say something different? If I did, total slip of the tongue. So Charlie says, "Yep, I liked it. It could have been better. Could have been worse. That makes sense. I agree. It could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse." Um, I think it's crazy because some people are saying that it's the worst Star Wars ever. Now, I don't know if, I mean, and then usually respond with, "Have you seen The Phantom Menace?" but I do see, I see some points in that. Okay. Goth Boy, did anything surprise you? That's a great question because no, not really, actually. I felt it was, without going into too many spoilers, the stuff with Ray didn't really surprise me that much. Um, what ends up happening with Kylo doesn't really surprise me. So yes, I mean, of course, I do not claim that I predicted everything, but the big things, not too much. All right, uh, and Anti Gamer says 5 out of 10. Felt like two movies being shoved down my throat. There was a lot packed into this, so it was like with the three Hobbit movies, it was suffering being stretched too much. The Rise of Skywalker was like too much and too little. What's the next timeline in the franchise? What's the next time? I'm not sure if I understand your question, but elaborate un poquito, por favor. All right, Rogue85 says, I thought it was meh. All right. Probably liked a little better than that, but at the same time, man, I'm going to have to do another live stream that we can talk spoilers because maybe look out for that this weekend or something like that because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about. I was talking to one of the writers on the show I'm working on, and she saw it this morning, and we were going deep into legends and everything, and because I think the more of a Star Wars fan you are when you see this, the less you'll like it. Totally, I think that's how it'll work because I saw it with 25 people, 25. I saw it with 25 other people last night. It's like my friends. I bought 25 tickets, and I guess 24 of my friends and myself went and saw the movie. And a lot of them are really casual fans, and most of them really, really liked it. But the people that I'm talking to that are kind of more really diehard fans didn't like it quite as much because it introduced a lot of plot inconsistencies and stuff like that. That at least a few of us feel. Still fun movie though. Still fun movie. Okay. Worst in terms of Star Wars canon and Force powers, the movie introduces new stuff. Not sure how it plays out in the long run. Yeah, the Force powers is definitely something I'm referring to. Some of the Force powers it introduces, you're like, so why has that not been used before? Which is one of my worries. If you watched my previous, pre-watch live stream, that was one of my concerns. In introducing new Force powers, you potentially open up a can of worms of why didn't they ever do this before? It's that holdo hyperspace moments, and they do make reference to that in this movie, and they play it off in one line. It was so apparent that it was funny. Okay. Will you start making videos on Star Wars video games? It would be interesting since the new Star Wars game came out. I haven't played Fallen Order, so I can't really comment on it. I have played a little Vader Immortal, especially just the Lightsaber Dojo, which is awesome. But I don't have much time to play video games, and I don't even have a console, to be honest, so I have to get it on my PC. All right. LOL, says Charlie. I feel the same way, Danny. It went real fast sometimes, too fast at times. I wish they could have kept on the characters. Hope that's not a spoiler. No, I don't think that's a spoiler. Yeah, I think in general, excuse me, I am muting my phone. I think in general, it was interesting because it really wasn't a 3-act structure. It was just kind of like scene after scene that kind of, culminated in something, which was an interesting way to do it. I think in general, the whole sequel trilogy really lacked a coherent arc, especially with all the stuff they kind of retconned with Episode 9. Again, I don't want to give away anything. But when you do see it, I want to know what you guys think. If you really feel that this new sequel trilogy has had a solid arc from beginning to end. Of course, the original trilogy had that solid arc, the Luke Vader story. The prequels, solid arc with the Jedi versus the Sith, and of course Anakin being in there and his arc. But this new trilogy, I mean, Kylo and Rey a little bit, but in general, the macro story kind of lacked that arc, I felt. Goth Boy, did you find any Easter eggs? Well, there's a ton of lines from Episode 3, like lifted off the page. And so I thought that was kind of, some of them I liked, other ones are like, okay, stop quoting things. All right. I believe the return of Palpatine ruins Vader's and Anakin's redemption, says Paul. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that. I tend to share the same sentiments, but I'll have to talk more about that in a spoiler live stream. But I think you're on something. Okay, Anzi Gamer says, I hated a lot of the weird Force things, like the Force Phantoms teleporting and Rey being able to Force Storm, which is other bull. Yeah, a lot of the Force powers were interesting. Let's put it that way. Okay, so Dennis agrees, lacks solid arc, the whole trilogy. Goth Boy, they did showcase the character that was only towards the end of the movie. I think they should have given more light on the Sith Trooper. Yeah, the Sith Trooper was like, honestly, you blink and you miss it. It was such a big part of the marketing campaign, and it's blink and you miss it. Not a huge thing. I was waiting for Duel of the Fates to play since it was in the trailer, but unfortunately, alas, it was not. It was not. Redemption Ruins, yes and no, but discussion for another day. says Dennis regarding Anakin's redemption. So if you're just joining, I thought the movie was fun. Uh, I really enjoyed it as I was watching it, but the moment I started to kind of really think about it and ruminate on it, then I didn't like it as much. I think it introduced a lot of plot holes, a lot of inconsistencies with the rest of the saga. I feel like, um, particularly in regards to kind of Anakin's arc, I feel like it does a little bit disservice to it. Um, so it's kind of my beef with it. Those two things. So that's really just thing like Star Wars problems I have with it. Movie making, filmmaking problems. Uh, it was pretty rushed. There were a few things that weren't really fleshed out, particularly with Ben, and a few things with Ray, but particularly with Ben, that I felt like okay, I needed like much more than what you gave me there, because some things just happen. Um, with Leia as well, um, and then of course the Return of Palpatine. I think in general the Return of Palpatine falls a little flat for me. Okay, all right. I felt like a fan film. Well, that's a pretty big fan film. Okay, do you think it was more fun than The Last Jedi? I think in general, yeah, it was more fun than The Last Jedi. Last Jedi, of course, just had a lot of dialogue scenes, which Empire Strikes Back had a lot of dialogue scenes, so you can't fault it for that. Um, but I think that's one of the reasons, as I was watching Rise of Skywalker, it is so fun that you really get caught up in the moments. You really get caught up in how, um, in the action, which kind of prevents you from thinking things through until you finish watching it, and then you start thinking things through, and you're like, wait a minute, that didn't make sense. Wait, that certainly doesn't make sense. So, okay. Why introduce new characters in a finale? Which characters are you referring to without being too spoilery? Okay, how crazy was it you to find out that Palpatine was still alive after episode 6? Well, when I heard his laugh in the trailer, I was blown away. Um, so that blew me away, but I do think I think the return kind of falls flat, to be honest. Um, and I didn't like all of the how it kind of ties into 7 and 8 too. I mean, they don't even practically explain it. But anyways, okay. Anti Gamer says agreed on the fun to watch, but the second you think it falls apart, it's like this is hyperbole because I don't really feel this strongly about it. But it reminds me of the George Costanza quote from Seinfeld, where he's like, "It's like an onion, Jerry. The more you peel back the layers, the more it stinks." I don't feel that strongly, negatively towards it, but okay. Honestly, The Rise of Skywalker felt like a Star Wars theory video. Um, it's funny because if you guys have not checked out his Once Upon a Theory, oh no, I won't say that. Never mind. Just go check out his Once Upon a Theory video before you go see the movie. Okay, Mr. Wick. What it is, Mr. Wick? 125% AUS Prime Trash. Oh, so you did not like it. Um, Clay Allison, what's up? Did you like what happened at the be? Did you like what happened to Snoke at the beginning of the movie? I assume you're. No. Let me just say that. You know, you get the backstory of Snoke in the first 5 minutes of the film in 5 seconds of screen time, and no, I don't like it. I think it's dumb. It just it just undoes so many things from the films, from the first two, from 7 and 8. Okay, at least Chewie got his dot dot dot. Yeah, yeah. Chewie did get his redemption or whatever in the end. Um, I felt like they could have done a little bit more with it, to be honest. But there's a moment with Chewie that really tears your heart for a second. Um, well, not for a second. It tears your heart. So that was a good moment. There's a moment with Chewie that's a pretty good moment, kind of midway through the film. I think they should have found a way to stick with Snoke instead of bringing back Palpatine. That's interesting. It's man, I wish we could really delve into spoilers here. It sounds like most of you have seen the film, but I don't want to give away too much. Um, I don't know. I mean, honestly, there's just so many things I would have done differently, just in general with the trilogy. So it's hard to say like what point. I mean, I never really liked Snoke from the beginning, just because he felt like he really had no connection to the previous six films at all, and so I don't even know if I would have used Snoke at all. To be honest, I don't know what I would have done. But maybe they should have just stuck with Snoke. I don't know. But if you're bringing back Palpatine, I think you got to bring back Anakin and stuff. I don't know. All right, your favorite scene, or is that too much of a spoiler? Favorite scene? Um, that's a good question. Um, probably either the opening scene, uh, or because it was just so interesting visually, and of course you're just what's going on, what's going on. Whoa, this is intense. The opening scene, and possibly the ending. I don't know. It's hard to say because there were so many scenes. It was just scene after scene after scene. All right, Gothboy. Could the new trilogy of Star Wars be about what happened in the events of the Sith Wars between the Sith Empire and the Old Republic? I think that's probably what it'll be, but I don't know. I was talking to someone who had a meeting at Lucasfilm recently, and they were kind of talking about it, and they brought up Plagueis, and the people at Lucasfilm were like, they were saying it's interesting how so many people have taken and had so many theories about Plagueis, yet maybe Plagueis was made up by Sidious. I mean, technically they could do that. You know, the whole Plagueis book is legends now. So I would be interested to learn more about Plagueis, if he even existed. I guess who really was Sidious's master. Who knows? All right, let's left with Star Wars. Asked Paul G. That's a good question. That's a good question. Of course, we got the Kenobi show coming up in the near future, but I think I want to know more about. So I got this theory. Let allow me to articulate. If you read the new Thrawn trilogy books, uh, Thrawn talks about how with the Chiss that there is a group of girls, basically mostly girls. When they're little, they actually navigate their ships through hyperspace because in the unknown regions, space is constantly changing so much, so the navicomputers can't keep up with all the changes, and so they can't plot courses accurately through hyperspace. And so they rely on these Chiss force sensitive navigators to actually navigate through hyperspace. And they're called in the Chiss language Skywalkers. And so when he meets Anakin Skywalker, he's kind of intrigued by that name and kind of latches onto him. And and so I'm really interested of okay, can it be a coincidence? I don't think so. That Shmi Skywalker has the last name Skywalker. Where did the family name get the last name Skywalker from? Um, I suspect it was generations before that somebody in the line was a great pilot and was called a Skywalker, and the name stuck. And so that now opens up the questions. Okay, so was the line always force sensitive? Was Shmi's force sensitive? But not particularly that, but was it because of the last name Skywalker that the Force chose, or Plagueis chose, whatever theory you want to grab onto of how Anakin was created? Is there a reason why Anakin was created where he was created, like with Shmi? Well, it's like with Mary and Jesus. Why was Mary chosen? She particularly was just a very, good woman, and Joseph being a really good guy. But why was Shmi chosen? And so I think the whole last name Skywalker has a lot more meaning, or potentially, of course. I think there's just an interesting story there. Of course, it's more Anakin's story, but not really at the same time. Okay, I just saw a post that the new Kylo comic and said that Snoke destroyed Luke's temple and killed the students, not Ben. That is correct. Ben did not destroy the Jedi temple that we see in episode 7 and 8. It was Snoke. All right, what's up, Abdi Muhammad? How's it going? Okay, so back to the film. without getting spoilery. Um, the music, of course, was fantastic. John Williams. I mean, what are you gonna say? You say anything bad about John Williams, you might as well just strike yourself with lightning. Um, the music was great. The visuals generally were pretty awesome. There were a few moments where you were a little conscious of the CGI, but what are you gonna do? It's in every film. Leia really looked good. Um, so they did a great job bringing her back. I didn't really like how they dealt with her ending, to be honest. It was very abrupt for me. Uh, I I don't think that's a spoiler at all. Um, and I don't mean to say death or I'm just saying ending. Her not her finale, I guess you could say. I thought it was very abrupt. Just kind of came out of left field. Wasn't set up. It was just like, wait, what? What just happened? I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way. Okay, so yes, where was Thrawn during all this? Just just me. This would have been a great time to hint at him for something they make a series or movie in the future. So I'm guessing, Charlie, you mean they need to make a Thrawn series or something like that. Thrawn's cool. Okay, hyperspace skipping car challenge. Drive car blindfolded at 88 miles per hour for 1 minute. Can you guess? I didn't like the hyperspace skipping, utter failure. Yeah, Dennis, it was a cool sequence, but at the same time, it's like, what's the point of hyperspace skipping? Plus, the TIE fighters are following through hyperspace. So does every First Order have hyperspace tracking now? It's just like they made such a big deal out of that in The Last Jedi, this ability to track people through hyperspace. Yet now in The Last Jedi, TIE fighters are doing it. It's like, okay, I guess let's just give the ability to everybody. So I thought that was kind of it was one of the many little plot holes I felt that this film introduced. Um, so the other thing that kind of stood out to me was the Jedi are so powerful. The Force users are so powerful in this film. They have basically become superheroes. Now, I know they were pretty close to it already, of course, in all the Star Wars films. The Jedi, of course, are heads and shoulders above the Muggles. But in this film, they were so powerful that if they made a mistake, they could fix it immediately. They were like just totally invincible, and I just felt it was too easy. It was just basically, it reminded me a little bit about Finn's comments in Episode 7, where Solo is like, people are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us, and Finn's saying, "Don't worry, Solo. We'll use the Force." And I felt that's kind of what the Force users in this film were doing. They're like, oh, we got a problem? Well, let's use the Force. We'll come up with some Force power to get us out of this. And so I felt that I didn't love that aspect. It was too much for me. I love the Force, but you still make it a little difficult for the characters. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm bagging on the film a little bit too much. As I said, I really did enjoy it as I was watching it. I really wanted to know what was going to happen next. I was excited. I was into it. Some people did think sections were boring. I didn't really necessarily feel that way, but it was just afterwards where I really kind of started to think about it. You get so wrapped up in the action, because there really is a ton of it. You get so wrapped up in it, but then, and so you really can't think of anything as you're watching because it's so intensive and immersive. But then once you finish, you're like, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. Okay. So Mr. Wick, I'm getting the impression, did not like the film. I certainly don't endorse getting the movie for free, though, especially as someone who works in the film industry. All right, Dennis. Mr. Wick, I'm glad you're joining the stream. Dennis says, in Episode 7, Rey thought Luke was a myth and no one knew about the Force. Suddenly common knowledge in the universe that Palpatine was a Sith. The universe had no clue he was a Sith when he lived. Dennis, that's a great point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because members of the Resistance were talking about the Sith. That's a great point, and very valid, I think, actually. Yeah, because very, very few people knew that he was a Sith Lord. There were rumors that he had some sort of sorcerer Force abilities, but they were just rumors, and the vast majority of even the Empire didn't believe it. Like if you read the book, like for instance, Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, I think by Claudia Gray. She even talks about how a lot of the members of the rebellion didn't believe in the Force, particularly ones who had never met Luke Skywalker. They just thought he was, a really great warrior or fighter, but a lot of them did not believe in the Force. Um, and so it's interesting how, yeah, it's a great point, how all of a sudden everybody knows about the Force, yet in Episode 7 nobody even knew about it. I mean, you watch The Mandalorian, and it's surprising me how nobody has said, hey, this little baby Yoda looks like, he looks like that Yoda guy who was the Jedi the leader of the Jedi. I mean, for sure, people had to know who Yoda was at that time. I mean, I think you would know who the leader of the is. Um, so I've been surprised, even by episode, 5 years after episode 6 in The Mandalorian, how nobody even nobody equates this guy with Master Yoda. Um, and how, when he does his things, his force powers, force abilities, that nobody says, oh, he's using the force. So, Dennis, that's a great point. That's a fantastic point. Maybe by being with Rey, they've learned about the Sith, possibly. All right. Yeah, so Rogue 85 says, even in the Mandalorian, no one knows what the Force is. Let's see. Hardy Chaplin, hello there. General Kenobi, what's up? All right. Wyatt Saya says, if you could change one thing about this movie, what would you change? I would go back. I would just go to the macro trilogy, to be honest. Just the macro story of the trilogy, the overall arc. It's so hard to, because with Rise of Skywalker, it introduces a lot of. I mean, it retcons a bunch, for sure. I don't know if I don't. It would be impractical to just choose one thing in this movie to change when I would change a lot of things from the whole trilogy. But my name's not J.J. Abrams, Ryan Johnson, so it doesn't really mean much. Maybe one day. Okay, that gold taco. The galaxy didn't really know much about the Jedi because the Empire kind of erased their existence from the galaxy after Order 66. Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a big reason why. And, they were. I think we got to remember that because of Order 66, and as you remember, Palpatine elaborated on a plot by the Jedi to overthrow the Republic. The Jedi were made out to be the villains, that they were eventually came to be known as the group that tried to, take over the Republic, tried to kill the Chancellor, tried to basically take over. And so they were enemies. So it makes sense why they kind of were forgotten. But how now all of a sudden everybody knows who they are in episode 9 is a great question. Okay. Or who knows who the Sith are. All right. So I think I've kind of generally went over my feelings on the movie. I don't know what I could give it, from 1 to 10. My main metric is, will I see it again? Yeah, I'll see it again, for sure. It's Star Wars. I mean, I love all Star Wars movies. I love The Last Jedi. I love The Phantom Menace. I love Jar Jar. I like Star Wars. I could critique all day long, but about any movie. There are points of the film I like. I like some of the fights. I do like some of the bits with Hooray, about Rey. I like kind of generally where it ended up. I don't necessarily like parts of the journey, and a lot of things that happened in between, but still Star Wars. Okay, so before I log off here, Darth Scion 95 says, "Did you hear on the Episode 9 Visual Dictionary they revealed Darth Revan is canon? It is said that the Sith Troopers had separate squads, and each squad was named after ancient Sith lords, and one was Revan. I didn't know that. Very cool. I like the Octu scene," says Dennis. Very memberberry, but good. That's a good scene. That is a good scene. I always felt this is kind of related to this scene. If you've seen the movie, you know why it's related. But in The Last Jedi, when Luke is burning the books or burning the tree and everything, and Master Yoda appears to him as a Force ghost and talks to him and explains to him, you got to learn from your mistakes. You got to, pick yourself back up, and you just got to try again. You can't let your failures define you. And I always felt that scene should have been Anakin. You know, I feel like if there's nobody in the galaxy who's learned more about mistakes than Anakin Skywalker. All right, Von Dard says the scene where Rey handed off the lightsaber to Ben was awesome. That is a cool scene. I mean, I know people in the theater cheered when that happened. All right. How do you convince yourself this movie trilogy is decent? I'm trying to understand as many points of view of the movie and trilogy. That's a good question. I just try, you know, as someone, yeah, just from my point of view, you know, good as a point of view. From my point of view, just as a filmmaker, I just know how hard it is to make just movies in general. Particularly just with my limited experience with Stars of the Past, how difficult it is to make something Star Wars. And so I just generally just try to see the good in all movies and just kind of latch on, oh, I like that part. You know, that part was good. Probably would have done this differently. So, you know, when I don't like things, it doesn't ruin the entire film for me. So, I don't know. I just think in general, just because I am a filmmaker myself, I think generally it just kind of makes me a little bit more empathetic to films and stories. All right. Yes, Anakin should have, well, you know. Yeah, I wish we saw some Anakin. Okay, if there's a light side to this trilogy, fans prove that we have desire to consume Star Wars. Give us more great Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, I hope they keep making Star Wars. I really do. I hope they are constantly trying to think, okay, how do we make this better? How do we please the fans? How do we, how do we just keep making good Star Wars? I think in general, this trilogy, I'm hoping, did kind of teach them how to do a trilogy. That you do need to have some sort of general cohesive arc of what you're going to do for 3 movies. Because to me, it is just abundantly and deathly apparent that there was really no plan. You know, JJ and Kathleen both have said that they were always planning Palpatine to return, but Trevorrow said that having Palpatine return was JJ's idea and it wasn't in his script, so that kind of contradicts what they said. But that's what I've heard. I mean, I don't know if it's true. You never know. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me. Let's do. What do you guys think? Should we do another live stream where we really talk spoilers and stuff, and have a big spoilers in the title? Let's maybe reconvene next, or reconvene. You know, maybe early next week, or I don't know. Between Saturday and Monday, when more people have seen the film, we'll do it. So give it a week for a spoiler review. I think that maybe that's a good thing. Maybe just after Christmas, we'll do a big spoiler review, so more people have time to see it, and we can really dive in deep and, you know, really talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and why we liked it and why we didn't like it. And so, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. Love you guys, and yeah, just remember to stay spiffy. And, well, you know, don't do anything I wouldn't do twice.